Welcome, friends. I'm very happy to be in this part of California to see all of you. Today I'm going to introduce to you the subject of the spiritual path and the different masters who come and teach this path. The spiritual path is not for everybody. It is only for those who seek spirituality, who want to find the truth, who want to find out why we are here in this world, what is the purpose of life, and who have these basic fundamental questions about themselves and about the creation and their purpose. If somebody is not interested in these questions, that person need not go and look for any spiritual path. It's not meant for them. So therefore, you have to be a seeker of these truths in order to go on the spiritual path. If you are not a seeker, you need not waste your time. If you are a seeker and you have been seeking the truth, then you will find that all authentic spiritual teachers have said that the truth lies within yourself and not outside. That by going to various places of pilgrimage, by visiting various shrines, temples, churches, and other holy places outside, you can get teachings about the truth, but not the truth itself. You cannot find God outside anywhere except within yourself. You cannot find reality and the nature of reality anywhere except within yourself. Therefore, the true spiritual path is what leads you to discover your own self within yourself. Anything that takes you outside is leading you away from the path. That is why when people ask me, who is a good spiritual teacher? Can you recommend one? And I say to them, any teacher who tells you go within is a good teacher. Any teacher who even gives you one step to go within is a good teacher, because you have not taken even one step. You cannot say, I am going to judge whether the teacher has gone to the 8th plane or the 5th plane or the 6th plane, when you have not gone even one step. Therefore, even if you go in one step, it's a good teacher. If a little child says, I don't want to go to school because there is no PhD and doctor teaching me, I find in the university they are teaching, well, he has to go through school before he can go to the university. It's the same thing on the spiritual path. That if you want to learn the higher truths about yourself, don't worry if you, in the beginning, have to learn the smaller truths and to know the initial steps for going within. Since the truth lies within us, what does us mean? When we say within us must have a meaning. Who are we? That's a very fundamental question. That question has been asked ever since this humanity came upon this planet. Socrates says, know thyself. All others have said the same thing. If you can know who you are, you are just one step away from knowing who your creator is. So therefore, the big challenge is to know who we are. When we look at this question, who are we? The first thought that comes to us is, we are sitting in a human body. So therefore, for all purposes, the human body is ourself. And we have to explore what lies within this human body. Of course, there are many physical organs, physical systems operating in the physical body, which makes the physical body run so well, efficiently. And it's amazing how compactly all those systems have been put into this little body of ours. Seeing the size of this physical body, the systems that have been installed in it are remarkable. If you spread out the nervous system, it takes miles and miles of space. You take out the blood streams, you take out all the capillaries, they take miles. And they're all condensed and put together compactly in a physical body. So it's an amazing thing to see that so much physical equipment has been placed into the physical body. But when we think of the spiritual facilities, instruments, this equipment placed in the body, it's even more startling. Everything that we can ever think of is already in the body. We cannot even conceive of anything which is not already in the body. When you look at energy and awareness and things like that, which is a little different from the physical functions of the body, you will find that this physical body is divided into two distinct parts. The dividing line is not somewhere near the heart. The dividing line appears to be near the eye level, the level of the eyes. The reason is that the experiences we have, which are totally non-material and non-physical, take place either in the form of energy or in the form of awareness. Energy is a force that we employ. Awareness is knowledge we gain because we are conscious. These two things divide the body into two parts. And the body at the eye level and above is responsible for all acts of awareness and consciousness. And the body below the eyes is responsible for all acts of energy and force and power, physical power. Therefore, the body is actually a wonderful machine in which these spiritual instruments have been installed. Below the eyes, there are 6 centers of energy, called commonly as 6 chakras. And the chakras have been used by several masters for thousands of years to study energy levels. And they have very richly in their scriptures described those 6 chakras and how from the bottom to the eye level, the 6 chakras operate to create different energy experiences for us. They also run all our automatic and autonomous systems in the body. These chakras lead to heightened experiences of energy. They can create experiences like out-of-body experience. You can have experiences of wish fulfillment. You can have willpower developed so that you can have contact with people, read their minds. Number of very miraculous energy powers can come up by the practice of concentration of your attention on these 6 energy centers below the eyes. Now, these are remarkable experiences. And I have had a chance in the course of an early part of my life to go through these kinds of yogic exercises, which gives you the power to use the advantage of sitting in one of these centers and experiencing the energy levels of that center. Many of the well-known yogas today are all based upon the functioning of these centers and the functioning of the breathing that goes on in the centers and the beating of the heart. So the physical functions are responsible for very remarkable experiences of the 6 centers of energy. But the true spiritual teachers who come to tell us who we are, they tell us this is not enough. This is only giving you wonderful experiences. It is not giving you any clue to who the experiencer is, who is the self, who is having that experience. And none of these experiences ever reveal to you who you are. They give you power, they give you energy, they give you miraculous experiences outside and inside, but they do not answer the big question, who am I? What's my reality? Where does that answer come from? That answer comes from the levels at the eye level and above the eye level. Just like the 6 centers that lie below the eyes, there are 6 centers that lie behind the eyes. And they go one after the other right behind. Just like in the physical body below the eyes, there are physical points which you can pinpoint where the 6 energy chakras or the centers work. You can pinpoint behind the eyes, just going in a very short distance, going from the eye level to the center of the head, near the pituitary gland, the pineal gland where they hang. You can really demarcate exactly where those 6 points are. From there, it appears that there's another, not a horizontal line, but a vertical line that creates another 6 chakras of the highest awareness. Now, what is the difference between these levels of awareness? The chakras that are lying below the eyes, we call them pinda or physical. The chakras that lie behind the eyes, we call them anda, or the egg, or the astral, or the original. And the three chakras of those 6 behind is called Brahmanda. Brahmanda means the ultimate creative power and the source of all the mental activity that we have. It's the source of the mind. Above that are 6 chakras that go truthfully into the source of the soul, of the consciousness per se, and not of the mind. At this point, I would like to clarify that the mind and the soul are not the same thing. A lot of people confuse them. Just because they work together, just because we have tied them up together, we think the soul of a person and the mind of a person are the same thing. They are indeed totally different. The soul of a person, the spirit, is pure consciousness, the ability to be conscious, the ability to be aware, the ability to be an experiencer. That's the soul. It does not involve thinking, rationalizing, logic. All those things are performed by the mind, which is a thinking machine. The mind is a thinking machine which is powered by the soul. If the soul did not make it conscious, then the mind would not operate. Therefore, the mind is something that functions very differently, independently, and is just powered by the soul. But if the soul, in its function of picking up awareness, picks up all awareness through the mind, it has a tendency to identify with the mind. And that's what's happening. Therefore, when I first came to this country and talked to some metaphysical philosophers on this question of soul and mind, they said, we understand consciousness, mind, soul, whatever you call it, as if there was no difference between the two. One of the essential differences that can be noticed immediately is that the mind cannot function, the thinking machine cannot function outside of time and space, and cannot go outside the law of cause and effect. There's no way. The mind will always look for logic, cause and effect. The mind cannot even, for one single thought, think outside of time. The smallest thought that a mind can think takes time and occurs in space. On the other hand, the soul can function independently and does function in all of us independently of the mind by having experiences of intuition, gut feeling, a feeling that comes from nowhere with no time at once. It also has an experience of love, a sudden feeling of identification with somebody else. And so sudden, you cannot relate it to time and space. It's just an experience. It also has the experience of beauty, joy, bliss. These are coming directly from the soul. They do not involve the mind at all. On the other hand, daily experience shows that when we have a great experience of our soul, of our spirit, like love, joy, beauty, intuition, gut feeling, when we have those, the mind by its reasoning power very often dismisses all those things and makes us get out of it. The thinking mind does not promote the function of the soul. On the other hand, the soul is constantly providing the necessary power, the necessary conscious power to the mind to think and to work on that. Therefore, we should remember that what happens in time and space and cause and effect is the function of an accessory to consciousness. It's an instrument added on to consciousness. It is something provided to the soul to function and make use of. The mind is a very, very good, high-class computer. You use it as a computer, it's wonderful. If you allow the computer to use you, it's a terrible thing. But what we do is we allow the mind to make decisions for us. Every day we think, and what the thinking machine tells us, we follow it, even if our gut feeling says the other thing. Therefore, very often we go wrong. We go wrong because we do not allow our intuition to function and we allow the mind to function. And I can't blame ourselves because we have been trained to do that. Our education, our upbringing, all has been trained to think more, think before you do anything, think even more. And the more we think, the more we get into the trappings of the function of the mind. And some of the trappings are very interesting. The mind thinks continuously. The thinking of the mind is like the beating of the heart. If the heartbeat stops, the body ceases to function. If the mind ceases to think, it will cease to function. It will not function. If the mind won't function, the body won't function. Therefore, the mind has to keep on thinking all the time in order to be alive. And to think, it must draw its power from consciousness, the soul. So understand that these are levels which I will go into more deeply in a subsequent talk with you about the different levels of consciousness and how they operate. But the mind and the soul are not the same thing. The mind is the most useful thing if we use it. It's supposed to use for thinking, for interpreting sense perceptions, for communicating, for speaking, for writing, for all kind of communication with yourself or with others, for thinking aloud in your own head. It's a beautiful machine to use, and we should use it, but we should not be used by it. The problem only arises when the random thinking of the mind begins to guide our lives, and then we don't know where we are. The reason the mind goes wrong so often in its logic is because it's not fed proper data. Little bit of information is given to the mind and it jumps to a conclusion and tells us what to do. Next moment we find something else, the data was incorrect or incomplete, and therefore we made wrong decisions. Therefore, the mind is not very reliable. In any case, the mind system of reasoning or rationalizing is only based upon the use of logic. As students of logic will tell us that logic is only of two parts, deductive logic and inductive logic. In deductive logic, the premise is given and we deduce from the premise a part of that what is already given. Deductive logic is like saying, this wall is painted in this particular color, this is a part of that wall, therefore it's the same color. That's deductive logic. The deductive logic never gives us any new knowledge. It only gives us more information in detail about a part of the premise already known. It has never led to new knowledge. Inductive logic, on the other hand, is speculation. Inductive logic says, if this wall is this color and goes around which I cannot see, most likely it's going to be the same color. That's an induction. And inductive logic leaves an element of doubt. Because of this element of doubt in inductive logic, you will notice that the mind is always full of doubts. It's almost in nature of the mind to create doubt. The intention of the mind to create doubt was a good one to start with, that unless you have a doubt, you don't seek anything more, you don't seek clarification, and therefore doubting is not a bad thing. Skepticism leads to knowledge if you pursue the skepticism properly. But this doubt that the mind creates continuously does not lead to more introspection or more study, it leads to fear. So doubt in the mind leading to fear messes up everything for us. And that's what our life is like. Our life is full of mind creating doubt, doubt creating fear, and we are living a life of fear and paranoia. This is what has happened to us. On the other hand, we should have relied upon our intuition, upon the direct source of knowledge in our souls, which knowledge is not dependent on the premise before it, which knowledge is not dependent upon what we can see in front of us. That knowledge is dependent upon all the information that has been hidden and stored in our mind, both conscious and unconscious, for centuries, if not for millenniums. That the mind can hold so much for so long show that the mind is not just the function of the brain like we think. The mind has its own life and can be seen as an independent entity besides the body, besides the brain, besides the sense perceptions. If you were to look at this human body, you will find that if you want to study true spirituality and not merely psychic phenomena that lie in the energy sectors below the eyes, if you want to seek true philosophy, true spirituality, the pathway would be at the eye level, behind the eye level, and above the eye level. These masters perfect living masters who come into our life, they operate from that level. They are different from the yogis. They are different from many teachers of yoga, teachers of different schools of how to handle energy below the eyes. They do not deal with the subject of breathing, the prana and pranayam, which is related to breathing by the practitioners of yoga below the eyes. They consider prana is the life breath, it's the thought process. It's what makes the consciousness give life to the mind and give life to the senses and give life to the physical body. That's prana, that is life force. The life force is not merely the air that we breathe in and breathe out. Therefore, the masters who teach that, that you go behind your eyes and get more awareness rather than get different forms of energy, we call them true spiritual masters. Now, true spiritual masters take us not into the lower levels of these different chakras, but they take us into the higher spheres of greater awareness and greater knowledge of the self. When you want to get more knowledge of the self, you discover that the self consists of the mind and the soul tied together. That the soul, which gives the conscious power, the power to be conscious to the mind, they function so closely together that they become indistinguishable. And therefore, people have been saying, I think, therefore I am. That's a mistake. You should say, I am, therefore I am, and I have a mind, therefore I can think, which is the correct statement. That I am what I am because I am conscious being, and I have a mind that can think, therefore I think. Of course, yesterday, these computer whiz kids around me gave me a new definition. They said, I search, therefore I am. And this is a computer age, you know. Anyway, the point I'm making is that the knowledge of the self starts from an experience of what is lying behind the eyes. How do we study anything that's lying inside the body? What mechanism do we have to study what lies within? The mechanism is a very simple one, a great endowment to us, and that is the power of attention. That we can put our attention where we like. The rest of awareness functions autonomously. We are sitting in this hall, what is around us is known and is there. It does not change by our will. But what we look at, where we put attention, is within our will. If I were to draw your attention to that painting there, you can all look at the painting and your attention goes there. It can move away from somewhere else. The only real power that we have in consciousness to use is the power of attention. We can move it where we like. We can place it where we like. We can concentrate it where we like. If you go to an orchestra, to go to an opera, and the number of musicians are playing, and you like the drums more than the others, you can put your attention on the drums. What will happen? The drums seem to be louder, the other instrument become milder. There's no change there. Your attention has picked up the drums more than the others. The attention has the power to pick up something and exclude the rest around it. That's a very beautiful thing that it has. The power of the human attention to focus on something and concentrate on that to the point where it can totally bypass what is around it is the secret of all meditation and the secret of all spiritual activity. That you can use your attention to place anywhere you like. People have used this power of attention to place it on the lower chakras, and it goes very easily. You want to have meditation and put your attention on the heart chakra, it's very easy. You want to put your attention on the throat and the kant chakra, it's very easy. Why should it be easy? But you try to put the attention behind the eyes and hold it there, it's very difficult. The reason is simple. When we go to sleep every day, and we all go to sleep, we all need that kind of a change and rest in our consciousness so that we can rest our consciousness. When we go to sleep, what happens? The notional point from where we are thinking, from where we are operating as conscious beings, which appears to be behind the eyes at this time in the wakeful state, drops below. And as we go down into sleep, it drops below and goes into the throat center when we're having dreams. Dreams are not only revealed by the rapid eye movements, they can be revealed even by seeing the throat. When we're having no dreams and we have deep sleep and we forget the dreams, at that time we lower it to the heart chakra. And when we wake up, it comes back again. This happens every day. We have been doing it all our life. Therefore, people who practice putting their attention in the chakras below the eyes have no problem. It's very easy. But when they want to put their attention concentrated behind the eyes, they find it difficult, because it is as if you want to sleep while you are awake, and awake more than you are normally awake. That's what it means, to put your attention behind the eyes. So that is why the power to concentrate attention can be so beautiful that if you were to put your attention behind the eyes and concentrate it there, and be aware of nothing else, and hold your attention there, you will become unaware of what is around you. You will not be aware of what's happening around the world. You will not be aware where your body is. You will not be aware where your hands and feet are. Gradually you will not know the whole body and become unaware of it. It's such a powerful device that just by using the power of concentrating your attention at a point behind your own eyes, you can become totally unaware of where your whole body is. This kind of out-of-body experience is very different from an out-of-body experience created by the energy force, say, of the heart. If you are in the heart chakra and want to have the same experience by concentrating here, you still remain connected to the body. That is why people talk of a particular silver string or the string attaching them to this body while they have the out-of-body experience. In the 60s, when I first came to this country to study in the university, I found a lot of people making jokes of that string. Some said we went to a revolving door and the string got caught up there. One went and he said he got caught up in a machine and he didn't know how to get back. So those kind of jokes were made about that out-of-body experience. But when you are holding your attention behind the eyes at the point where you are awake, and I must say, the wakeful level of keeping attention behind the eyes is a natural phenomenon. If you want to know where you are now, supposing you say, I'm not my body is covering me, but where am I? As a source of consciousness, as a source of my attention, where am I operating my attention from? It doesn't take very long to see. It's not from the hands and the feet and the legs. It is from the head. And when you concentrate a little more, introspect, where am I thinking from? Where am I putting my attention from? You can see it's right behind the eyes that you are operating. With your eyes closed, you can feel you are right behind the eyes. If you have no form, you are merely consciousness and attention, you will find when you are awake, in this state, you are right behind the eyes. And how far behind the eyes? You will find you are as far behind the eyes as a triangle would make between the two eyes, physical eyes, and there was a center in the middle. And if I raise my fingers like this, if the ends of the fingers are the eyeballs, then what? This is about approximately the distance behind the eyes where you will feel you are operating from. It's a natural situation that we operate in wakeful state from there. But this notional position keeps on changing. At night, when you're about to sleep, try an experiment. When you're feeling half asleep, not fully asleep, you're half asleep, you want to touch your eyes. In wakeful state, and now if I tell you touch your eyes with your eyes closed, you don't have to see where your eyes are. You know where they are, and automatically you can raise your hands and touch your eyes. Do the same thing when you're very sleepy at night. You try to touch your eyes, you will touch your nose. You will know you thinking you're touching your eyes. If you could maintain the awareness of having gone to sleep and still touching your eyes, you will touch your throat and think you're touching your eyes. So this shift in the notional location of the self, of the conscious self, takes place in this body all the time. But it does not go behind the eyes. It goes in the eyes and below as a normal function of sleep. That is why when we have a sleep sequence going on, in the dream that we have, the dream sequence, we have a different body and not the same body. This body is lying in the bed, sleeping, the sleep dream body is moving around, but we still think that is the self. Now you will notice that the self never changes, no matter what your form. Supposing in the dream you became a butterfly, and you were flying in the dream like a butterfly, you will not see a butterfly. You will be flying. There was a Chinese philosopher, Fa Hin. He had a dream. In the dream he felt he was a butterfly, and he was flying in the garden, and the flower that he saw had a beauty, hue and radiance he had never seen before. He knew they were far more real than any flowers he had ever seen in his life. And yet he was a butterfly. He had never seen those as a human being, which he saw as a butterfly. And he woke up and he wondered, am I really Fa Hin, the philosopher who dreamt that he was a butterfly and saw those beautiful flowers, or am I really a butterfly? And I'm now dreaming that I am Fa Hin, the philosopher, who is having that experience of being a philosopher. He raised this issue to show that the persistence of the self goes at every level of experience, no matter if it is dream, if it is a wakeful state, or a higher spiritual state of awareness. The self will always be in the center of that being, the center of that form which you adopt. If you become a bird in a dream, and the bird flies and somebody says, you saw a bird flying, you can't be a bird, you don't look like a bird. And you will say, no, I didn't see any bird flying, I was flying. It was me. That means the I did not change in spite of the fact your whole form changed. The form has nothing to do with the notion of where the self is. The self continues to persist in every form it can take. Indeed, you will find in spiritual practice, in meditation, that the self will persist even if there is no form whatsoever. And the self will still be in the center of that no form state. So it's an amazing reality that the self never changes. The self never alters its location. Whatever form you take, whatever environment you create around you, the self will still be in the center of it. So I'll talk to you a lot more about this later, about how this knowledge of the self, the persistence of the self, gives us a way of the highest form of meditation and highest form of finding out what the truth is. Right now I want to introduce to you that the masters who come in this world and teach us the path of spirituality take us to different levels. Many masters can take us to a level, an ethereal level, where we find that a world exists beyond this world, a body of ours exists beyond this body, into which we can awake, and which is more real than this, that it has the same mind, the same thinking process that we had in this mind, but much greater clarity, much better recall. It's not that we see something spectacular like we see in the lower chakras. We only see that we have woken up to another reality where we have existed much longer than we did in the physical body. When we go to sleep at night, in the dream, we see some scenes which shift very rapidly, then we wake up. And we immediately know that now we are awake and that was a dream. We have no confusion about it. We never ask anybody, are we awake? We never pinch ourselves to see, are we awake and was that a dream? We know it was a dream. What gives us this absolute certainty that we are awake? Have you ever thought of it? That every morning we get up and we have lost the awareness of the body all night long. We have been having dreams of various kinds. In the morning we wake up, even before we have opened our eyes. We are still lying in our bed without any movement. We know we are awake. What kind of information is that? What kind of awareness is that gives you instant, reliable knowledge that you are awake and you are not sleeping anymore? If you look upon it, you will find that the real secret is when you wake up in the morning, you remember that you slept, that you went to sleep. If you miss that part, you would never know you are awake or not. You could reconnect with the state of being that you were in before you went to sleep. It is that you remember, recall Yes, this is where I slept, and the whole of the life comes back before you, whatever you want to remember about the wakeful state. And therefore you know the intervening period was a sleep and a dream. If you didn't know that you were here already and that you went to the same bed to sleep, you would never know whether you were dreaming or not. The same thing is true if you reach another level of wakefulness, and real wakefulness, not merely seeing spectacles and seeing lights and shadows and new forms. If you really wake up, you can remember that you were there before you were born here. You will know that you were there several years longer than you have been here. That your life, you can remember of events that happened 1,000 years ago. And that you were there in the same body into which you have now woken up, that existed 1,000 years ago. And so many things have happened in that time. This kind of information is not picked up from somebody else. It is your own recall, from your own mind, from the storage of memory in your own mind. And that is a true awakening. If you awaken to that level, where you can remember that you were in that form, and that form is different from this physical form, but it is your form, the same self that you experience in this form is also being experienced in that form, and that you have recall and memory of where you were before you were born here, there is no greater proof that anyone needs. If I wake up in the morning and somebody comes and says, you are not awake, you are sleeping, will I believe that person? If 1,000 people come and tell me, no, you are still sleeping, you are not awake, I'd rather go by my own experience, because I remember I went to sleep and I've woken up. This instant confirmed knowledge of your state of wakefulness cannot be defied by any amount of contradiction by anybody. Is the same thing true about the spiritual experience of wakefulness to a higher level of consciousness. People don't realize that it's not something that will be proven. And certainly, if I am awake, I won't go back to sleep in a dream to prove that I was awake. And here we say, if a person has had a spiritual experience, he should come back into this state to prove it was a spiritual experience. The spiritual experience of wakefulness, it does not call for that. It carries its own very confirmed, intense certainty of the state of wakefulness. And the biggest element of that is the memory that comes back, that you were there all the time. And you remember all the other life forms that you have taken. It's not only that you remember events, you remember other life forms that you have taken. That state into which we can awake from the physical state, we call it the astral form of consciousness, or the ethereal form of consciousness, or the refined form of consciousness. Why we call like that is because of the nature of the body. The new body is not gross like this physical body. It has its own very fine texture. It's very similar to the physical body, but it is very fine. It does not have any weight. There is no gravity in that state. It can fly. It can just put pressure on the feet and can go. It can just think and fly. It has got so many other features. It has instant knowledge of what's going on. It has control over time which is flowing, and it can stop the flow of time and freeze any moment. It has many functions which it can perform, which this physical body cannot perform. The nature of time itself is different in the experience of that form. So when you rise to that level, you know that you have come to a reality, and that this was real, and what you thought was real was actually a copy from that. All the elements of physical creation that you see around you also exist in the astral level of consciousness. So therefore you come to know that this whole show of the physical life that we have here is merely a copy. It's coming from somewhere else, and that we can rise to that level and become aware of our higher self. The most beautiful part of that astral body is it has the same sense perceptions that the physical body has. It can see, touch, taste, smell. It has tactile things. It's exactly like the sense perceptions of this physical body. Only they are sharper. There's greater clarity in that perception. Everybody's eyesight is better than 20/20 there, no matter if you're wearing glasses here or not. Everybody has very, very clear perceptions. In fact, one philosopher describes the astral state of consciousness as just the sensory perceptions, and the body is nothing more than all the sensory perceptions put together. That's the astral body. The fact that we can rise to that level of wakefulness is not easy. There's no way that we can do it by an experience in the physical world and trying to do things physically, because physical things will keep us here. To be able to withdraw the attention to that point within ourselves, to awaken to the astral level, requires a different kind of experience than we have had so far. Our experience has been to focus our attention. Focusing attention on anything means moving away from yourself. How can you put your attention on anything without moving away from where the attention is coming out from? On the other hand, this practice of wakefulness to a higher level of consciousness involves withdrawing your attention to the point from where attention is flowing out. The act of withdrawing attention is totally the opposite of the act of focusing attention. And yet, all the physical teachers will tell us, focus your attention. Therefore, they move you away from the self. Therefore, you never have an actual astral experience. But the masters who can teach us this are those who have themselves practiced. Masters who can take us to that level are considered to be spiritual masters, because they take us to a level of reality which is more real than this reality that we are used to, the physical reality. This looks like illusion when we are in that physical or astral reality. It does not look illusion while we are here. Dreams become real and remain real till we are dreaming. When we wake up, the dream becomes a dream. The same way, this physical world remains real and only becomes illusion or only becomes unreal when we wake up to a higher level of consciousness. That is why to sit here and say this is illusion is no sense at all, because we have no other reality to compare it with. So to call it illusion is incorrect according to me. This is the only reality we know. The physical reality is our only reality. And the beauty of consciousness and the shift in the level of consciousness is, at one time it holds only one reality. When you go to sleep, the dream will not become real if you don't become unaware of the wakeful state. You have to leave one, then the other becomes real. When you come to the astral state of consciousness, you have to leave behind the physical state. That becomes real, this becomes unreal. When you go back to this becomes real. So we are not experiencing illusion after illusion, we are experiencing reality after reality. These are levels of realities according to me. Because what is the definition of reality? Our definition of reality is very, very crooked. It's based upon verification with sense perceptions. If I can see this thing, if I can see my chair and touch it, then it's real. I verified it with one sense perception with another. I can do the same thing in a dream. In a dream, if I sit on a chair and I say, is this a real chair or not? I can touch it, it's real. I take a cup of water in my dream and I say, is this real or not? I taste it. It's real. It's as real in the dream as it is now. When does it become unreal? It only becomes unreal when I wake up and find there was no cup, there was no water, there was no chair. I made it up for the experience of a dream. And therefore it became real while the dream lasted. And when I woke up, it all became unreal. Same thing is true here. Everything is real. Unless we can go to a point of reference where we find a greater reality and we find the reason why we had this reality. I can tell you why I dreamt about the glass of water is because I knew a glass of water in the wakeful state. And I carried that impression with me and created a glass of water in my dream. So I know what happened, what created it. It didn't make it real. But the experience was real. The other important thing is that even though I drank a sip of water in the dream, it quenched my thirst. When I woke up, there was no water, there was no glass, but still quenched my thirst. Therefore, sometimes the experience can be real even when the objects of experience are not real. There's a phrase in the Indian scriptures that this world is Maya or Mithya, and they want to translate the word Maya as illusion. And I've always pointed out that's not a correct translation. Illusion means unreal. Illusion means totally unreal. It's never totally unreal. If I have an experience in a dream that I have had a very hearty meal of my favorite pizzas, Shakey's ye old pizzas of the good old days, not existing too many places now, but in my dream I find an old Shakey's pizza and I enjoy the taste. I can wake up and still have the taste in my mouth. I can't say there was no taste. I can say there was no pizza. I can say there was no Shakey's. But the taste was still there. Therefore, you must distinguish between an experience, a sensory experience, and the objects which appear to create that sensory experience. The objects may be totally unreal. The sensory experience may be real. And that's exactly what happens. Therefore, to call Maya or illusion totally unreal is not correct. It only means that what looks real can create a real experience, even though later on we find out it was not real. So therefore, the definition of Maya is not that simple. It means that an illusion so created that the illusion creates reality for us in terms of experience, and we think because the experience is real, therefore the objects that are creating reality are also real. That's the real definition of Maya, of illusion, of this creation. So therefore, it's not that simple. You will notice that the experience that we have as an experiencer is almost always real. You can't say it never happened. It actually happened. But what caused that experience, and you are attributing it to things that existed, those disappear when you wake up. This is true from a dream to wakefulness. It's also true from wakefulness to a higher wakefulness to the astral level of consciousness. So when you have those experiences from a teacher or a master or a experienced master who has already traveled to that level, he can teach you how to withdraw attention and get to that. But still, don't forget, this is merely a sensory experience. It is still based upon our sense perceptions. It cannot be called a true spiritual experience. It's great. Like the psychic experience of our energy levels, it's a great experience. But I would not call it a spiritual experience. A spiritual experience would be that which reveals to you directly what the spirit is, what the soul is. If you have not found your soul, but just found a different body, it's a great experience, but not a spiritual experience. When do you find the soul? And how do you find the soul? You will find that besides this astral level, which is the level of sensory perceptions, those sensory perceptions constitute a body by itself. And when implanted into the physical body, they make it function like the physical body has those sense perceptions. And everything gets fixed into the physical systems of this body. When you are unaware of the body, by the process of withdrawal of attention behind the eyes, this body, you lose awareness of it, the sense perceptions become so strong, they are a body by themselves. That's the first time you discover that sense perceptions function independently of the physical body and that they are a body by themselves. But that's not all. If you can continue the process of concentration of attention within yourself, within the eyes of the astral body, behind the eyes, you will find even the astral body, you can make it disappear from your awareness and still awaken to a still higher awareness, which is setting up the whole of the astral and the causal systems and the physical systems. You can awaken to that and discover that you are something that is the cause of all experiences you ever had. That's why we call it the causal body. The causal body and the mind are the same thing. Today, we are functioning in this physical body, and the mind looks like an operation, a function of the brain, function of something in our head, which makes it think and do these things. When you awaken twice at two levels, you find that the mind you thought was merely a thinking machine was a cover upon yourself like a body. It has no form, doesn't resemble this at all, but it is creating all the concepts and ideas and all basic structures which can create and form the astral and the physical systems. You have arrived at a level of knowledge of yourself and the mind in a way nothing else could have taught you. What was the process? Same process of withdrawal of attention behind the eyes. And you can discover that the mind was not as individuated as you thought. You can rise to a level in the causal plane of consciousness where you will find there was only one mind which we were all sharing. It looks like very individuated thinking. We all think differently. We talk to each other. This division has taken place in the illusion of the separation that took place in 2 levels below. In the causal level, you can have an experience of a universal mind from which all minds are drawing their power to think. This is a great experience. And there are very few teachers in the whole world who take you to the causal level of experience. Very few. And those who do, they say that's the final, ultimate. You reach the universal consciousness, universal mind, ultimate source of space and time, ultimate source of all cause and effect, ultimate source of karma, everything lies there, and therefore that's the end of it. But there are masters who say that's not the end of it. They say you still haven't found the spirit. You still haven't found yourself. You found your body. You found your astral body. You found how sense perceptions work. You found your mind. You found how mind works. You found the universal total mind. Where did you find yourself? You are still not knowing who you are, who's finding all these things. Who is the finder? Who is still the seeker, the searcher of all these things? You still haven't found that. Therefore, they say you have to transcend the mind in order to discover who you are. Those masters who can help us to discover our own self beyond the mind, we call them perfect living masters. They take us to a level of perfection because all below that, in the mental worlds, the 3 worlds of the mind are imperfect. Imperfection is there in all these 3 levels and can be easily seen, whereas the perfection is the opposite of that, and only very few, very, very few masters exist, have existed in history or exist today, who can tell us how to go beyond the mind into realms that are purely spiritual. In the Indian lore, they call Brahma the creator of this universe. But they say that the truth lies in Par Brahma, beyond Brahma. That you have to be in the level beyond Brahma, beyond the human mind, beyond all these mental worlds, 3 worlds of the mind, in order to be truly spiritual. The great master who taught me all this stuff and made me go through these exercises, he said his path starts from there. He says all the masters of the world and even the highest masters have been teaching you how to go up to the universal mind and discover how all thoughts and all knowledge operated from there. But that's not spirituality. According to him, the definition of spirituality is where the spirit can be discovered. And that is at Par Brahm, beyond the Brahm. That means beyond the mind. At the starting point, where you discover as an individuated soul, you are pure consciousness per se, that you did not need any of these appurtenances to add on to have a personality, that you were the power giver that made all these outer coverings, these bodies function. And all the experiences that you ever had, experience itself as a word, would not occur if you didn't give that power. And now you're gone to a point where you are the experiencer and not the experience. You're the creator of all experience. That's the real discovery of the self. Then you can say, I know who I am. I am the self. I am pure consciousness that made all other covers upon myself, the mind, the senses, and the physical body function. I was the power behind all this, and therefore I am consciousness per se. And yet, this is not the end of the journey. According to the perfect living masters, you are still covered by something totally unseen, and that is the awareness of being individuated, that you are one soul in myriads of souls, in unlimited, infinite number of souls, you are one soul, which itself is also the highest spiritual delusion that one can go through. They take you away from the delusion of being individuated and show you that you are always part of a totality of consciousness which is never separated. And the whole show took place within that totality of consciousness. They're the highest aim. That level of awareness is given to us only by very few masters, and we truly call them perfect living masters. And they are the ones who can take us to that revelation. I have mentioned all these things to you to tell you that there are many teachers. I would recommend to you any teacher who tells you go within. I would not recommend a teacher who says, go, there's a fine place I can tell you in the mountains, and there you will find the truth. If you go to the mountains, you will find many people who know the truth, but you won't find the truth. There was an American seeker. He found out that in the Himalayas, a yogi sits there, and when he speaks a mantra, some holy words, you get absolutely enlightened. And you know, as Americans, we all like instant knowledge. So he said, that's the right place for me. He made the long journey to the Himalayas, went up to the mountain, and saw the yogi hiding in a cave. He waited outside, and the yogi came out. And he said, Master, I understand that you can give some very nice holy words, some mantra. If we repeat that, we get enlightened. Is that true? The yogi said, that is true. He said, can you give me those holy words? Sure, you come a long way, I'll give you those holy words. Come near me. So he went near him, and the holy man whispered in his ears. The holy words are abracadabra. He said, I have come all this way just to hear abracadabra. He said, no, there's a catch to it. When you say abracadabra, don't think of bananas. That's the only requirement. The man tried all his life. Every time he would say abracadabra, bananas would come in front of him. The yogi was making a point that our mind functions very differently than what we think. The association of ideas is such we can't untangle ourselves from it. Therefore, when we even think of something in our head, when we repeat a mantra in our head, if it has any connection whatsoever with something outside, our mind will go outside. That's how language functions. It's association of ideas with experiences we have had. So it drives us out all the time. Therefore, a mantra to be successful, even temporarily, even for use as a means of concentration of attention behind the eyes, a mantra must be such. It has no association outside. Also, it should have some association inside, even though we may not know it at this time. I'll talk to you more about it later, but I think I gave you an introduction to the path of the masters and what kind of masters there are. A number of masters, the perfect living masters who take us beyond the mind to our own reality are very few. Great master, my teacher, used to say that the number is so small, even at a time when most of them are needed in the world, and many of them will be in the Western world, especially mentioned North America. That time, the number can still be counted on the fingers of your two hands, which means a very small, limited number. But how to find them? It's very tough to find a perfect living master. If we could know who a perfect living master is, that means we are already at that level where we don't need one. So therefore, if we cannot see an ordinary human being, the only difference in the ordinary human being and a perfect living master is his awareness. At what level he is talking from, what level he is experiencing at all times. And it's very difficult for us to know. Therefore, the only thing we can do is to wait to be discovered by a perfect living master. And that's what happens. We don't have to search for a perfect living master. We have to be ready to be found by a perfect living master. If we are ready, we are seeking in our hearts, a perfect living master will come into our life. If he doesn't know we are seeking, he is not a perfect living master. And if he cannot come into our life by coincidence, by circumstance, he is not a perfect living master. Therefore, a perfect living master comes into our life by coincidence, by strange, accidental happenings, which we sometimes call coincidences, but they don't look so coincidental once we know how it happened. And then he's just responding to our seeking. The more earnest our seeking, the more he will reveal himself who he is. So I wish you are all seekers sitting here, that's why you are here. And I wish you all great success. Thank you very much.